Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast. I'm coming to you from Prague on Wednesday, the 3rd of October. It's a cold, blustery, rainy Prague. We had a big heat wave this summer and now winter has firmly hit us. So I'm in my office here in Letna. I'm here early in the morning, 7 o'clock. So I've got some calls to Australia. So just recording the intro to this podcast. This week, I had the pleasure to talk with Joe Glover. Joe's a really interesting guy. He's only 26, but he's already very entrepreneurial. He got involved in the Business of Software conference, which is a big deal in the software industry. And he really pushed the marketing of this software. So he talks a lot about some great tips for marketing big conferences. He then founded his own sequence of events called the Marketing Meetup, which he runs across the UK. There are events for marketing people, obviously. And it's really interesting how he sets up the event, how he builds a sense of community, and how he promotes them. So I think anyone running any kind of meetups is going to find something really interesting from this interview. The podcast is brought to you by EventsFrame. That's the software I'm involved in. We think it's really an amazing system and a lot of big conferences are using it. I'm CEO of a company called Apps Events, and we run over 300 conferences and training events a year as a Google partner. And we tried every software ticketing product out there. We tried EventFrame, we tried EventsCraze, we tried Bizzaboo. Nothing was working. The prices were crazy. So we wanted to set up a system that was great for running events, whether it's one event or multiple events, with flat, low pricing. So no ticket fees. You just pay a monthly fee or an annual fee. So if you're running any event, I'd love you to get in touch with me and I'll send you a special discount if you just send me an email to dan@eventsframe.com, dan@eventsframe.com with the subject line podcast. I'll send you a special discount code for EventsFrame. So have a great day, everyone. And here's the interview with Joe Glover. Hello and welcome to the Events Podcast. And today I'm speaking with Joe Glover in the UK. And Joe runs the Marketing Meetup, which is a series of events all around the UK for marketing professionals. So hi, Joe. How you doing?
Hey, Dan. Very well. How are you?
Good. Joe, we've spoken a few times. I think you got in touch with me because I was on the Tropical MBA podcast, which you listened to. And I think you got in touch with me after that. And we've had a bit of a backwards and forwards about different things since then.
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to that podcast and it was just one of those moments, where I'm sat there in my car and I was thinking, that guy's me, but he's me in 10 years' time, So,
Well, yeah, I don't know if that's good or bad for you, but yeah, it's like, I like the Tropical MBA. I listen to it every Friday. I think it comes out Thursday, but I've got a couple of podcasts that are kind of part of my week. I always listen to This Week in Tech on Mondays on the way to work. And then I always listen to the Tropical MBA on Fridays as well.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, podcasts have been a huge part of my life, especially quite recently. So I always listen to them on the train. I can't say I've been particularly disciplined with a schedule. That's quite impressive there, Dan.
It's not really, it's not a schedule. It's just like, maybe it is, I suppose, because I just, I've got an office now in Prague and I drive in every day. It's not a very long drive. It's only 20 minutes, but, I always listen to something on the way. So kind of Monday morning, I'm like, oh, This Week in Tech, new episode. I'll listen to it,
Nice. Well, that's to the Marketing Meetup podcast next as well.
Yeah. Do you have a podcast, do you?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, you do. I see it on the website.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's take a step back, Joe. So tell us what, because we've talked before and you're quite interesting in that, you've got into entrepreneurial things quite early. So do you want to start after school or university or how you got into doing stuff?
Sure. So I'm 26 now, so I've been graduated for 4 years or graduated 4 years ago.
Well, you've done a lot already for 26. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I look about 40, so
no,
all the youth and the looks. But anyway, I graduated 4 years ago and I went into SAP consulting. And I was sort of sold on a line about, the money that people would earn. And
did I tell you that I was an SAP consultant as well?
I think you said IT consultant. I didn't know.
I was an SAP consultant for over 10 years. I worked for Deloitte and then I was a freelancer, SAP FICO modules. And I worked all around the world. I did it for over 10 years at SAP.
Nice. Well, you lasted longer than I did. I was about 3 months.
Yeah. And what were you? Were you based at ABAP or what did you do?
So we worked with a tech called BPC,
right? Which
was, I can't even remember now. We were working in FTSE companies doing their accounting software, basically. And my role, I was a graduate, so I just came in and I was a note taker, really, a highly charged note taker.
Yeah. I got into it just because I was kind of fairly techy, and then I just kept reading about SAP consultants making all this money. It's really that's the harsh truth of it. And also there was the money and it was the travel, because I was always into travel, and I saw these contracts appearing everywhere. There used to be a website called JobServe, probably still is, and that had all the contracts on, and every contract was 3 to 6 months.
Nice.
So I went to some cool places. I worked in the Caribbean, I worked in Silicon Valley, I worked in Asia, everywhere in Europe. That's what I liked about it. But the work itself, just like at a certain point, I was like, if I have to look at the SAP admin console one more time, I'm just gonna like shoot myself. It was got too much.
No, you win. I think the most glamorous place I went to was Slough. So
right, I worked in Slough as well. Actually, I've been to Slough.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with Slough, but it's certainly not the Caribbean. So,
sure. So you did a bit of SAP consulting?
Yeah, and I just quickly worked out it wasn't for me. So I was still blogging about marketing at the time. Right. So I'd done my dissertation on social media, and specifically social media complaining, and I just knew that was something I enjoyed. And I also thought
social media complaining.
Yeah, well, the idea behind it was that I was trying to understand, how people use social media, and when they're complaining, it's quite an emotionally charged moment. So you're kind of getting a concentrated dosage of social media and social media usage as such. So that's the reason I focused on complaining. So it was really interesting, and it showed to me that I was really interested in social media, but also, that there might be something I could contribute to the field as well. Quite a lot of stuff at the time wasn't stuff that people were writing about very much. There was a few leaders, but not many. Of course, which is the opposite now. But at the time, it was a new thing.
What's the blog? What URL? Are these blog posts still out there?
I don't even know. I think it's probably something like josepheglover.wordpress.com or something. Okay, yeah. It was one of those really rubbish blogs.
So you were doing this while you were SAP consulting then?
Yeah. And, it just showed me that really if I was spending my spare time writing about a topic, I should probably follow my heart into that.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up in marketing. And specifically, I ended up interviewing for a role, and my later boss, Mark Littlewood at Business of Software, took a chance on me. He must have seen something at me.
So how did it happen? So he saw you via the blog, or how did that go?
I think it was just through a recruitment site, if I'm honest. So my then girlfriend, now wife, was working in Cambridge. So I looked for jobs in Cambridge because I was previously working in London. And I just saw the opportunity came up on a recruitment site. So
right. So you saw a job advertised and you got in touch with Mark from Business of Software.
That's it, precisely. And it was a cold winter's night, and I walked into the Redgate building, because at the time that's where Business of Software had some office space, and I was completely green, but Mark was sort of willing to take a hit on me, really, and that was kind of where my events history started, really.
So just to sort of people who don't know, the Business of Software conferences, it's kind of a big deal in the SaaS, software as a service area. They have a conference, well, two that I know about, one in the US, one in the UK, and I think I told you, I co-founded MicroConf Europe with Rob and Mike, and that's kind of a similar thing, a smaller version. That's kind of a more boutique version of Business of Software. But it's an interesting conference. So tell me did you help set up the UK one, or what was your role, and what was Business of Software doing when you joined?
So I started out as a marketing assistant and then moved up to marketing manager.
And how many people were in there? Just talk us through how did it look? They had an office in London, is that right? They were running both conferences out of the London office.
So we were based in Cambridge.
Yeah, Cambridge. Sorry.
It's a really small team. The team at the time, it was 4 people. Yeah. So it was Mark, who's the CEO, and just like the most creative human being you'll ever meet in your life. His brain works in a way I've never met anyone else's brain work before.
Right. That's cool.
We've got Wendy, who organised the events. And she was based in the States, in San Francisco, and likewise just the most fastidiously detailed but incredible human being out there. And then there was my manager at the time, and then following when they left, then I took over the marketing, so trying to sort of fill the room, so to speak.
So it was already set up for the US and the UK conferences were already going when you got involved?
Yeah, so the UK conference has been going for about 3 years, and BOSS itself, the USA event, which was sort of the granddaddy of them, was going for about 8 years at the time I joined. And it was the 10th one was my final one there. And, it was just an incredible place. So
sorry to jump in. So just tell us, like, so when you joined, what were they doing for them? Like, what was the main marketing approach they started off with, and then what sort of stuff did you bring in? I'm curious because it's interesting how big conferences, there's a different type of marketing. There's obviously the social media, but then there's a lot of just cold calling potential people to go to the conference. So I'm curious, what was their approach to get people?
So it wasn't a big conference in the way that some people speak about having
what sort of numbers was it?
It was about 400 people.
400 people. That's a pretty medium-sized conference, I'd say, medium to large.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly we marketed ourselves on being the best for those certain people rather than the biggest. And the best meant that we provided an environment where those people went in and they felt looked after.
And those people are entrepreneurs who've started their own software companies, basically, the customers.
Yeah, the sweet spot was technical founders who sort of grew their company to about 5-10 people, and then were starting to look at themselves and sort of go, okay, well, I've got a company now, but I don't really know how to run a company. So even though it wasn't a conference, even though it was business and software, it wasn't about the software aspect. It was about the business aspect. So, from info through to marketing and
what marketing channels were they using, and how were they mainly getting people?
So the primary way was emails at the time, and
pre-GDPR, you could do a lot more.
Yeah, I think we were pleased that we never bought any lists or anything like that. It was never an email. It was never an approach like that.
So you were searching for potential companies who had this, you thought a company between 5 to 10 people and a technical founder, and you were just looking for an email address and cold emailing them, basically.
No, the other way around. It was a far more inbound approach, business to software. So the approach was that over the course of the events, we recorded the talks and then released the talks throughout the course of the year. And, that was really the main way we gained email lists.
So you released them and then did a blog post, and people had to enter their email to get access to the talk. Was that?
Precisely that, yeah. So we used Wistia to host the videos on.
Yeah.
One of the cool features about Wistia is that you can put a gateway on there. So you play for 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, you sort of say, hey, you enjoying this? Hit this email, hit your email address, and then you can watch the rest for free. And,
And how are you promoting the videos then? Was that organic, or were you paying for ads and stuff, or how was that getting out there?
Boss was incredibly lucky in a way, and I appreciate this might not be a useful thing for everyone who's listening, but we had a legacy audience. It had already been running for 8 years.
Exactly, that's the point. Because the approach you would have been using in years 1 and 2 probably was a lot more just calling people up, emailing them, posting on forums, that kind of thing.
For sure, yeah. I mean, we were lucky in that years 1 and 2 we had the backing of Joel Spolsky. So
yes. Joel from Fogbugs, I think, is that right? And Trello?
Fog Creek, I think.
Fog Creek software, yeah. But wasn't Fogbugs the bug tracking software he did?
No idea, actually. Maybe. So the founder of Business to Software was a guy called Neil Davidson, who also started Redgate Software.
Yep.
So Joel and Neil were sort of, I don't know whether they were friends, but they certainly knew each other. And Joel...
That's huge. Having someone like Joel, because the thing about MicroConf is, Rob Walling has an audience already, sure. through the podcast, startups for the rest of us and different things he's done. So that's like an interesting thing. People looking to do conferences is like, it's 10 times harder if you don't already have an audience. That's the key thing. You can still do it, and tons of people do it, but it's a lot more legwork to do that. And if you're thinking of doing a conference, anything you can start doing now to start building your audience is key as well, in terms of getting a blog, getting whether it's podcast or video content or whatever.
Well, that's how the momentum was continued in the later years. Sort of through using the blog content, to sort of engage people and engage new people.
So you were doing these videos, you were recording them at the conference and then sort of gradually releasing them. And you were also writing blog posts as well.
Yeah. And we also started doing like webinars and stuff like that. So hangouts with the attendees, not the attendees, sorry, the speakers. So I remember in one of my first weeks, we had a live webinar with Rand Fishkin, and I was the one that was charged with making sure all the technology worked and stuff like that.
Right.
So it was awesome at that moment.
Fantastic. So what else? Anything new you brought in? Obviously, you're a social media guy. What did you bring us some new stuff with social media marketing?
If I had my time again, I think I would have been a lot more measured and process driven with it all. At the time, I sort of walked into a new job, new career, and it was very much, this is the way things have worked well. So we're going to continue doing more of that.
Yeah.
And really, the main benefit I brought in at that stage of my life was, let's do that, but let's do it slightly better. So
yeah, which to be honest is like, if you have something that works, there's no reason to change it a lot of the time.
for sure, I mean, it's one of those things, that you should always be looking to improve. So, we were looking to see how we could improve our social media posting rather than just broadcasting, sort of engage people in conversations and trying to make it of a more community feel. One example that we did is that we opened a Slack channel on the conference day itself in 2000. I don't even know when, but in the 9th event, we had like a Slack channel where people could speak to each other. And we tried to encourage people to use that throughout the course of the year as well. So it was almost like that real community feel and sort of.
That's interesting, because that's something I haven't heard before. So you had a Slack channel and you kept that going through the year.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a late convert Slack. I've just been getting into it in the past year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I'd be lying if I said that it was really, really successful. But during the course of the event, it was brilliant. People were speaking to each other who wouldn't have done otherwise.
Was there much dialogue went on between the attendees, like after the conference?
So after the conference, there was an element of it. It was sort of like a bubbling undercurrent. You get like days where there'll be like some stuff said, and then there'll be other days where there was just nothing. But that was fine. The facility was there. And that's very much like the Marketing Meetup too. So I've got a Facebook group.
Well, that's the thing, because I was going to say, like, because I've got a Facebook group for Events Frame, our SaaS for ticketing. And I'm actually going to set up a Facebook group for this podcast, which is kind of the Slack channel. I mean, you could do it as well, but it might just, if you've got a Facebook group, do you need it is the question.
I'm a big fan of, just doing a couple of things really well rather than, half-arsing everything. So that's the reason I don't have a Twitter feed or an Instagram channel and stuff like that, because there's no need to. The goals of the Marketing Meetup are such that they're not supported by those channels.
Sure. Well, let's take that. We haven't got there yet. Let's finish the business of software. I want to hear about it for sure. So what? So you did that a couple of years. What? Did you do a different role, or did you just you kept doing the marketing and then you decided to move on at a certain point?
Yeah, it was very much. I'd had a brilliant education at Boston. I was so lucky to be exposed to so many great marketing thinkers. People like Rand Fishkin, Seth Godin, Joanna Weeb.
Did Seth Godin speak at the event?
Yeah, he spoke there.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah, he's a legend.
So Rory Sutherland, just these insane speakers. It was just a brilliant education for someone at that stage.
And did you go out to the US conference every year as well?
I did, yeah.
Where is it held? Was it in Massachusetts, or does it move around?
Yeah, it's always, so the previous load of events have been at the Seaport Hotel in Boston.
Right.
Boston's just an amazing city.
Sure. It's
got a real nice continental feel to it, I think. I really like it. So yeah, it's been there every year. I think they did do one year where this was before my time, where they scaled it up to about 800 people. Yeah. And they just found that intimacy and that sort of real connection with the attendees, it wasn't the same. And they sort of decided to take it back to the Seaport the following year, because it wasn't so much about the attendee numbers as it was the attendee experience.
My opinion about whether to move the venue or keep it is, I like events that move. Like, for example, I'm in the Dynamite Circle, which is the group that Dan and Ian from Tropical MBA, they have a group. And they have a conference every year in Bangkok, which I'm going to this year in October.
Yeah.
And that's been in the same hotel. It was in a different hotel as the first 3 years. Now it's been in the same hotel for like 3 or 4 years. And I find it makes it a bit stale. I mean, I'll still go to the conference and it's still a great event and I love it socially, but I think it's cool to move it around, Now, there's the downside of that is it's a huge pain in the butt, having logistics of dealing with a new hotel, new, not knowing the city for networking parties, not knowing just how everything works, But I think it's a bit more adventurous. I mean, there's another conference I go to, EARCOS, it's like an international school tech conference, and they rotate it between a few cities. Kuala Lumpur, Bangkok, I think a couple more in Asia, maybe Singapore. And I like that approach, but I know, but it's interesting that you said that people prefer the atmosphere of the same place, which is interesting.
I think some people described it as like coming home.
Yeah.
And I can definitely empathize with that sort of stale feeling.
If it's a cool hotel and it's nice complex and just people like it, then I could see that, I guess.
Yeah, I can definitely see both sides. I mean, it's one of those things that it depends, I think, on your positioning, really. It depends what you're trying to provide your audience, and if the venue is like a huge part of like the excitement, et cetera, then that's probably something you want to look at. Should I be moving my venue more often? If you're trying to community around a specific point or a specific point in someone's life, then maybe, the same venue is fine, because you do get that sort of coming home sort of feeling.
Yeah. It's interesting because part of the whole conference experience is going for a weekend away somewhere, So a certain amount of people like to go and visit somewhere new because they combine the conference with seeing somewhere new. And a certain sort of people, like you said, they just want to go to the same place and keep it simple.
That's it. Yeah.
Cool. There's other conferences. DEF CON, the hacker conference, which I go to sometimes. That's in Vegas. It's always in Vegas, but they move it around to different hotels, so they keep the same city. Yeah. So everyone has the Vegas experience, but they move it around, which makes it interesting as well.
For sure. Yeah, I could really see the benefit. It's a ginormous pain in the ass from the event organisers side of things, but I could see the benefit. I guess you leave yourself open to comparison. If one year was in a particularly good venue and then the next one was in a slightly worse venue, then the other side could be,
that's true.
It wasn't as good as last year type thing, which every event organizer hates to hear.
Yeah, that's the worst thing you could ever hear. Yeah, exactly. Cool. So tell us about how you moved on and the Marketing Meetup, which we can talk about, which you run as sort of a part-time thing. How did you leave business of software and what was your next move?
So it kind of overlapped a little bit. So I started the Marketing Meetup at the end of my time at Business of Software. And that was just a side thing. And the reason I started it was that I was a solo marketer. And
this is at the marketingmeetup.com?
Yeah, I was a solo marketer. I didn't have a network in my local area and I wanted somewhere to learn, but I wanted to do it in an environment that was probably conducive to me being a bit of an introvert as well. I sort of wanted it to be a comfortable, safe place where people could come and sort of meet each other within a certain set of rules, because even though I've been running events by that point for 2-3 years, I still hadn't really found my flow as far as networking went.
Yeah, it's interesting. The first interview I did, which if you check out the events podcast, was someone called Gemma Stone. She runs meetups for female introvert entrepreneurs, which is even more specific than you. But she said she wanted a certain structure to it, so people kind of felt at home, and if they were introverted as well.
For sure, I think it kind of comes to that point that in my mind at least, the best businesses are made by people who have that pain point, and then they kind of stumble onto the business at a later point. In the same way that you've got your ticketing platform. Presumably you've used a whole load of ticketing platforms and then you're like, well, you know what? I feel like this could be done better.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true. Yeah, exactly. So tell us, so you started this as a meetup. That was the first thing. No, not as a Facebook group or a website. You just thought, I'm going to do a meetup in my local town for marketers.
Yeah. So I'd actually started a football meetup first. So soccer for anyone that's, going to taint my sport. And I had the Meetup subscription, and it's not particularly cheap. So I thought,
this is meetup.com.
Yeah, meetup.com.
What do they charge, actually, out of interest?
I think it was either 60 or 80 quid for 6 months, I think.
Right.
But 2 years out of uni, I wasn't earning loads. So, it was sort of just an opportunity to meet some new people. And it was a bit of an investment at the time. So there wasn't any penalty for starting more than one group. So I started the football group and then the Marketing Meetup. And the football group went well, and then I had to give it up because the Marketing Meetup started going really, really well.
So tell us, what did you do? What was the first event you did, and where did you do it? How did you promote it, and how many people came? So
I was quite fortunate in that I had contacts at Redgate from my time at Business of Software.
And what's Redgate?
Redgate's a software company in Cambridge, and they do SQL tools. I'm probably butchering this because I'm not involved in that world quite as well, but they, as far as I know, they do SQL tools for Windows stuff. But they've got this amazing building, which is sort of, really decked out, a real techie building, for, with all the perks, including, bacon at breakfast and, proper lunches at lunchtime and just a wicked culture. And I was fortunate. I tried to book out the space downstairs, which had a maximum space of 30 people. But it wasn't available the night I wanted it. So I ended up taking the space upstairs, which got about 150 people. So
they give you the space for free?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
This is one thing I always talk about is, try to get a free venue if you're starting off with an event.
Oh, for sure. It's a huge expense if you're not doing that. So
and the risk as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's enough businesses and co-working spaces and whatever else.
Town halls, schools, church halls. There's a lot of places that you can negotiate a low fee or free, or maybe you can work, paint their walls and do something for them in return. There's a lot of options.
That's it. You got to think about how can I benefit the space as well. And in
exactly.
They were looking to hire marketing people.
Yeah, so, well, it's perfect. Yeah, perfect. So how did you promote this event, and how did you organize? How did you structure it?
So there were two main ways I promoted it. So the first way was through meetup.com itself. And the main benefit to meetup.com is that it's a pre-populated platform in that, people are on it, people are searching for events, and it's quite low friction to join an event and sort of sign up to come to your first one. So that was a huge benefit. So I kind of put the Marketing Meetup on a bit of a whim, but within a couple of weeks, I had 100 members, and I was like, well, I better start doing something about this now.
Right.
So that was the first way. And then the second way was through LinkedIn. So I just went onto LinkedIn and typed
This is interesting for me because I'm just getting started on LinkedIn marketing. Yeah, so I'm going to probably ask you some questions about this. Yeah. Okay, second message was LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I literally just went through and put like a filter on marketing in the Cambridge area. And then I just messaged everyone, very like low pressure, but hey, I'm starting this thing. I'd love it if you could come.
So how did you message them? You sent them friend requests?
Yeah, I sent them connection requests.
So then, did you purchase LinkedIn Sales Navigators to do this?
No,
that's the tool I've been looking at.
Yeah, I didn't at the time. It was all the free version. You could definitely do that. I've got Sales Navigator now, but it's more for my day job than it is for the meetup. And I just messaged these people with that in the connection request, and some people ignored me. Some people said, "Yeah, I'd love to come," and some people said, "No, thank you." And to the people I said, "No, thank you," I said, "That's absolutely fine, but would you mind telling your team?" And some did and some didn't. But as it resulted, there was about 50 people at the first event.
50 people, great. And I guess the sponsor who provided the space gave catering or some drinks or things as well.
Yeah, so I needed to find so Redgate provided the space, but they didn't provide the drinks. So I needed someone to pay for that. So I just thought, again, who could benefit from speaking to a whole load of marketers? And there's a brilliant recruitment company in Cambridge called Brand Recruitment. And, they were a perfect fit. I sort of just said to them, look, I'm looking to bring together a group of marketers every month. Do you want to sponsor? And it was like literally 200 quid. But it was, just an opportunity for them to get in front of those people in a non-salesy way, though. And that's one of the very important things about the Marketing Meetup. It's not a sales environment. People come as people. And I sort of describe it as a house of ideas. Once you walk through those doors, it's not about your job title. It's not about the company you work for. It's about the ideas in your head.
I think running... some events have people who kind of pitch from the stage, and I just never like a sales event if it's not explicitly promoted as a sales event where someone's trying to sell something. There's events that are, I've gone to like meetups for Salesforce or different things where they're selling Salesforce.
Yeah.
But I don't like going to any kind of meetup where someone's pitching me something and that's not what even if it's free, I guess. I mean, you expect it more when you're free because something's got to pay for it, but I still don't like it.
No, absolutely. I think, you just got to think of it in the same way as you think about any human relationship. And you wouldn't enter a human relationship saying one thing and then doing another. You'd just be honest and you'd treat them with respect and you'd be nice to people, and I think that's the same way that I think about my events, that if I was treating it to one person, what would I want that person to feel? And I want them to feel respected and liked and like they've gained something from it. So let's provide them the moment to do that.
Great. So you did one. Who spoke at the event? How did you structure the format?
So the format is sort of half an hour to an hour of networking at the beginning, very informal. There's free alcohol and free food. And then two 20-minute talks. I think the first ones were on PR and social media. And I tried to pitch it at sort of like an intermediate level knowledge.
Yeah.
So I say to people, spend the first 5 minutes laying the foundations before we start moving into the more in-depth thing. Because my audience varies by geography, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found is that there's some freelancers in the audience and then there's some B2B marketers. So I try to make it that as many people as possible can gain something from the talks. And then after the talks, there's just more networking afterwards. But I think the really crucial thing is the atmosphere, really, in that people come in, they're respected, and it's an inclusive environment where everyone's welcomed as guests rather than, I don't know, it's either someone to be sold at, 2 or, just a number, it's sort of it's a real community.
That's cool. So did you always plan on doing more events, or did you just did the one and it went well and you thought, I'm going to do more?
Yeah, it was a complete accident, really. It just went well, so I enjoyed it. It was pushing me, so I thought, let's do more. Precisely that, really.
Yeah, and so what was the next event? And tell me how you grew it to more events.
So in terms of location,
what was your thought process? Did you think I'm going to do another one in the same place, or I'm going to spread this out to different places? How did you grow? Because I know then you eventually got some partners to run local ones as well at some point.
Yeah. So I think I had it in my head for some reason that I just wanted it monthly. There wasn't really much of a logic behind it. It just seemed like the right sort of cadence.
It's a good time, definitely. Less than a month is really short, obviously.
Yeah, precisely. And I think it was something I was doing on the side as well. So I didn't want to overwhelm myself as much as anything. So that continued for about 10 months, and I was still trying to fulfill my goals, of having that place where I could learn from other people.
So you kept doing this every month for 10 months. You just kept repeating the same process, different talks.
Yeah.
Cool.
And really, I was curating the talks as my cheat code to marketing, really. I was curating them on the stuff that I was interested in at the time.
Definitely. Well, that's part of the reason I do this podcast. I get to learn things from people I talk to, it's just the same as someone listening, hopefully learn something, like it's completely selfish because I get to learn things as well, which is cool.
Absolutely. Well, it's the best way to do it, and if you can't find it, then do it yourself. I think that's the best way.
And where were you keeping the discussion going online? Was it on meetup.com or on your Facebook group?
Initially, it was meetup.com. And then I think within about 6 months, I opened up the Facebook group. And that's an interesting thing because it's not really, it's not the most active Facebook group in the world, but it's useful for people when they need it.
No, I'm just setting one up for the podcast like we talked about. Do you think it's good to make it so you have to approve the people, to give some kind of exclusivity and that you have to actually approve them?
100%.
Yeah.
No, I really think that's a great idea. And, I've joined some fantastic Facebook groups that are really, really lively, and they all do that as well.
Sometimes you ask some questions on membership. Can you just give a quick description of what you do, whatever?
Yeah, I haven't done that. I'd be interested to know if, people have found it useful or not.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I suppose if you're gonna do any kind of ad targeting, to the people in the group, which people would do, I guess. Which people. No, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this because you're going to get ads, whatever. But I guess I know some people with Facebook ads, you can target members of a group. So I guess if you're doing that, you want to be sure that people in the group are the people to target the ads to, if you're selling that service to a sponsor.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's not something I've explored just yet, but maybe one day, but it would definitely be useful. And that's one of the flaws of the Meetup platform, in that you only get a name. So when someone asked me the other day, what job titles do you get, for a sponsorship discussion, then I was sort of saying, well, my feeling is it's XXX. You don't get that demographic data on anything other than, you have to do additional surveys or you have to sort of record it somehow yourself.
Sure. We did that on our system events firm. We put in the option so you can have multiple questions because when people register for an event, the organizer wants to get different information, like what's a job, for example, what's a job title, or even like dietary requirements, if you've got serving food and stuff. So that came up early doors. So you did it every month. Were you getting the same people come or like new people over time? And how were you promoting it as an ongoing basis? You said you were using LinkedIn and Meetup in the beginning. Was that your approach as you continued?
Yeah. So there is a core. There's probably a core of about 50% who stay every time.
50%, okay, cool.
And then the other half are made up of newbies. So we're up to about anywhere between 120 and 170 people coming to the Cambridge one each month now. And about half of those are new and half are old. And in terms of ongoing sort of marketing, it was quite opportunistic with it, really, because it was a side business. So, I mostly relied on word of mouth, but then I did little things like I got some business cards printed which said, I think you'll really, really, really like this. And then it was just like the Marketing Meetup on the back, and then it just had a link to it. And the idea was that I handed it out to every attendee, and then they had to hand it out to a friend or a colleague.
Right.
And that's like just an attempt at like exponential growth, really. That if they handed it to 2 people, then, suddenly the group would be 3 times.
Did it work? Was there any success? Or it's difficult to track, I guess.
It is difficult to track. I mean, I saw a boost, but at the same time, the group was seeming to grow quite well because the event itself was, seemed to be enjoyable to a lot of people. So,
and how were you getting your presenters? Were you getting people to come for free? to present?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I guess you were getting a lot of the audience were emailing you saying, "Can I speak?"
absolutely. The benefit of doing a local group is that you're able to get to know quite a lot of people quite quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not the biggest conference in the world. It's not one of these ones that people aspire to speak at for a lifetime. It's a nice proving ground for a lot of speakers. And that's how you set the expectation.
That's good to create the opportunity, because a lot of people want to get started in speaking at events. And if you've got an event which is a bit more low pressure, that's good, a good way for them to get going.
That's it, and it goes back to that thing, that everyone's got an idea, and it's just a platform to share them. So yeah, speakers was a really easy thing to do.
Great. So how did you start growing it outside of Cambridge? I mean, it still is predominantly Cambridge, isn't it? But I know you've got some other venues and you partnered with some people. How did that go? And I know it's a work in progress, but I'm just curious to see what you've done so far.
Yeah. So after about 10 events, I decided to expand it to Norwich, basically just because it was good fun. So it's now in Norwich, Cambridge, London, Bedford, and Birmingham. And the Bedford and Birmingham ones are, for lack of a better word, franchises, in that they're being run by other people.
Right. And how did that come about, the whole franchise model?
The franchise model was a byproduct of people coming to me and sort of saying, "This is great, you should do it in this area." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fab, but I haven't got any time really. Do you want to do it?" So, I know these people, having them been to the event, they've enjoyed the event, they understand what it's about. And the fact that they've been proactive enough to sort of come up to me and approach me sort of indicates that they're willing to put a bit of time into it as well.
The one piece of advice I give you is just work for people on one event, try it out, because a lot of people can act keen and then do nothing. And it's, the best way is to start small and then work with people more and more when they've, proved that they're keen,
Yeah, I love that piece of advice. I emailed you about that, didn't I? Really appreciated that. But it has gone wrong. So the first one was...
It always will.
Yeah. The first one was in Dorset. And it just didn't turn out. The lady was really lovely and I'm a big fan of hers. But, she just didn't have time. That was the lesson learned, that, when I'm having these conversations, you really need to sort of establish whether they're going to have the time.
It's a time management as well. I know people are going to email me saying, "Well, I work this many hours and I can't do it." But, Rich Branson gets things done, and I'm sure he's got a pretty full schedule, like there's some people can just get a lot of things done. It's just and if there's a skill, you can learn this to some extent, I think, but it's time management as much as time often.
That's it. We're all busy, but I generally think that activity fills the space that's given.
Yes.
If you think about...
You fill the task to, the task expands to fit the time allotted or something.
If someone said that to before, then they probably said it far more eloquently than I have. But, it's exactly that, that I think people, everyone likes to think they're busy, but then go home and watch 2 hours of TV or something like that, and it's probably when I get a lot of the meetup work done, just sort of sat in front of the TV and there's nothing much going on, so I'll send an email to the group or something like that.
Sure.
That's pretty much how it happens. And
so let's talk monetizing then. So you've how have you obviously, the way you can monetize an event is you can charge to come to the event, you can get sponsors for the event. I mean, they're the two main ways, I guess. So what did you do? And was there any financial arrangement between these people who ran the other events for you, the franchisees?
Yeah, so I've monetized it through sponsorship, and that's a general sponsorship of a specific geographical area.
Got it.
So, for example, brand sponsor all of them, but each one have a separate price tag.
And I guess having was it Redcar? What was the company called again?
Redgate.
I mean, they're a great sponsor, and also the recruitment agency is a good sponsor because no one gets annoyed about getting job offers, really. I mean, you can get a few recruitment consultants who might harass you a bit much, but still, it doesn't really bother you because it's a job offer, and people want jobs. So that's a good sponsor, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the brilliant things about the sponsors has been so far is that they've been relatively low touch, and they've kind of left me to it. So they haven't demanded my list from me. They haven't demanded speaking.
So that's unusual. A lot of sponsors want the email list. They want the people's list. That's good. Do they come and mingle?
Yeah, they come and mingle. And, I say that everyone can come. So, for example, I had this conversation with one of the sponsors who their competitors would come in. And I said to them, yes, their competitors are coming, but I'm not going to ban them. I'm just going to elevate you.
And do you announce from the stage, this is sponsored by so-and-so, thanks very much? Give them a shout out?
Yeah, every event. They're on the slides, they're in the emails. and they get a shout out. And, more than that, over time. So I look for my sponsors to be sponsors for a long time rather than one off, because I kind of feel like there's a benefit there that people get to learn the name over time.
Sure.
I'm actually not a big fan myself, because I'm a marketing manager in my day job. I'm not a big fan of sponsorship on a one-off basis, because I think, you kind of, if, for example, you go to an award show, you have your 10 seconds up on stage where you announce a trophy for someone, and, people are probably drinking. They probably don't care who you are. They don't care if they don't win the award, and they certainly don't remember who you are.
No,
So for my mind, I'm not a big fan of sort of one-off sponsorship.
No, I have. In my events company, Apps Events, we have Acer as a sponsor. We have a few of it. We have a company called Text Help. We have a company called RM in the UK, and they sponsor. Well, Acer sponsored the whole world, all our events, because we do events, Asia, South America, US, Middle East, Europe, Africa, and some of them just sponsor the UK or Europe or the US, and that's good, because it's an ongoing relationship where you can, if they don't get something out of one event, they can get something out of other events.
Exactly. It's one of the things that it's an interesting thing, and I don't think I've ever really nailed it in my mind. Where the benefit of sponsoring single events is. I love that you have that relationship with them, because I think that only stands to benefit them.
Sure. So people listen to this going, Joe, that sounds really cool. How do I get these sponsors in the first place?
I think you have to think about how they're going to fit. So for me, I did a little exercise, which was literally just writing down places or companies who might benefit from gaining access to a vast amount of marketers. And then that comes down to your positioning, but the reason why you're doing the event in the first place. So for me, I knew I wanted a marketing professional, so that was quite an easy thing to follow on, that marketing people are going to come along to it.
So you drew up a list of companies, and then you drew up a list of job roles within the company.
It wasn't even as crazy as that. I literally approached the CEOs of these places and just said, I'm doing this thing. Are you interested?
And how did you approach them? Was that LinkedIn, or how did you do that?
Yeah, it was LinkedIn, actually. I think it was entirely LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it was one of these things that eventually word spread. So I think in the first event, I had Redgate and Brand. And then in the second event, I had Redgate, Brand, and Cambridge Marketing College, who provide like marketing qualifications, and so on and so forth. It was all people that would eventually have an interest in speaking to marketers and sort of getting their brand out there to those people.
That's cool. And what about the franchisees? Did you do some financial arrangement there? Like, did they have to get the sponsors, or did you get the sponsors for them, or did you split the revenue? How does that work? I know it's a work in progress, but what have you done so far? I'm curious.
So my thought process at the moment is that they'll get the sponsors, and that seems to have worked so far. Because having listened to you on the Tropical MBA, sort of speaking about empowering people to treat their franchise as their own business, I really like that thought. And I want people to sort of think the same about that. That they've got the freedom to kind of speak to people on behalf of the Marketing Meetup and sort of really be free to do that.
True. So, and just what you're referring to, with Apps Events, we have a bunch of regions. Each person runs it like their own business, and we do a profit share. But the thing you have to remember about that is, I still pay these guys every month.
Yes.
So they've got something. I mean, and we started small, like I recommended to you. We worked on more things. It wasn't just somebody cold. I started paying them. But they do have effectively a salary every month. As well as a profit share.
Yeah,
and that's something always to remember. If you're starting something cold and you're just offering a profit share, then it's harder. It'll be easy for you, I think, because you've got a known product and they can benefit from that rather than just starting up something cold. But I think it's always important to think, what can you offer the person upfront, or whether it's help or whether it's money or whether it's whatever.
Yeah, sure. And I think it goes back to that thing. I don't think that someone starting a Marketing Meetup event will be, if their motivation for doing it was the money, then that's not the right motivation. The people that are running these franchises are people who are looking to build their network primarily. And then the money is like an afterthought, or it's a nice thing to be done.
Yeah, it should always be with events. I mean, like people ask me, are you making money from these events? And we do, we make money from it. It's a business. I think there's probably ways I could make more money doing different things, but it's still a business,
Yeah.
And what I find strange about the whole events industry in general, it's not really one industry, but the whole space is that everyone's desperate to say they don't make any money or they're not doing it for the money. Even, and I'm not saying you are or I am, but it's an interesting psychology because, you want people to come to your community and get a lot out of it as a community event. But, people think, well, if people think I'm making money out of this, it doesn't look quite cool. So, I know people making a crap load of money at events who are desperately saying they don't make any money. And it's just not true sometimes, or they don't want to, it's an interesting way this whole thing works. I've observed it quite a bit and it fascinates me.
Yeah, I think it's a human thing, isn't it? And for my mind, I've got no problem saying I make money on it because I work bloody hard at it.
Yeah, sure. And the end, the goal of marketing is to make money. I guess that is the end result of marketing is to generate business for, income for the business. That's why it exists.
Yeah, on one level, indeed, it's sort of, that's what it's there for. So, I've got no problem saying I make money from it. And so the way that I split it with the franchisees is on a 70-30 basis. So they get 70, I get 30.
That's cool. Very generous.
Well, as I say, it's not a crap load of money. I'm still working full time and really that's not why they're doing it. But if they get a bit of pocket money, if it's anywhere from 500 quid to a couple of grand a month, then that's pretty good for most people. And if they keep their jobs, then that's that, So one of the chaps that's a franchisee is interested in running a few. At that point, it could become a business, or likewise, if we can find the right sponsors and we can continue to provide the adequate level of value for sponsors to get out of it, then, it might be that one event, one locale is enough to sort of be someone's wage or something like that.
It's interesting, like in terms of for you, if you decide to try to do this as a full-time thing or not, I think, I've met people running quite big businesses that still have a full-time job, and I think the good thing about that in a way is like it makes you systemize and automate the business to some extent because you've got the job, and maybe you never leave a job if you like it, or maybe, but even if you do leave the job, if it's automated, you'll have a lot more free time, I ran around like a headless chicken. I still do to some extent, but a lot more in the beginning, just doing everything. And now I'm just trying to systemize it because I've got two businesses. So I've got to have more time free. Plus I've got a baby and different things going on in my life. So I'm kind of late to the systemizing game, but I think it's really important. And if you can do it up front, then, maybe you can have a huge business and you keep your job or you give it up, but it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I read I listened to a Tim Ferriss podcast, which was like 10 businesses that make $1 million plus a year with no effort or something like that. It wasn't that, but it was something similar.
I want to listen to that. Can you find me a link to that? Because I listened to his podcast quite a bit. Maybe I've even listened to it.
I'll send you a link, but it was really scary, in that, there are these businesses out there that I think, he uses the term amuse business, doesn't he? Where it's got like a side business that, someone runs in the background and eventually, it provides them the income that they can do whatever they want,
Sure.
and I think there's definitely those things out there. And the meetups now have got to the point where, because they've got that momentum behind them, I'm probably spending no more than 3 hours per week sort of managing them actively. And there's like little bits of passive work that I'll do on it, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. But really, other than the events themselves, there's not a huge amount of work at the front end other than sort of emailing the group to let them know the next event's on.
Sure. Have you had events where you've managed to not even go yourself?
I had one, but it was a mistake. So England were in the World Cup semi-finals and I scheduled an event for the same day. And there was just no way that it was going to get out. So I rearranged it and then realized about 10 minutes later that it was the same time as a holiday. So I was able to lean on the community and sort of get them to sort of lead it themselves.
That's the next way you can scale it. I would suggest is getting events, because now most of my events run without me and probably better than if I was there, So I think that's definitely the next step.
For sure. I think it's one thing to sort of have your idea, but it's another one to sort of let it go and let other people's creativity sort of enhance it. And I think there's, as event organisers, we could all be doing a little bit more of letting go and sort of letting other people have a crack at it. Because I always get feedback from people with great ideas that I just, I wish I could implement, but I'm sure they'd almost be better at implementing it than I would, in a way.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Look, Joe, that's really, really great to chat. Is there anything you want to promote, any links or anything, or any events you want to tell people about?
So, the Marketing Meetup as a brand, I guess, is just expanding now, and I'm looking for people to come to the events. So they're in Cambridge, Norwich, Birmingham, Bedford, and London. So I'd love people to come to more of those. And also the podcast, the Marketing Meetup podcast, where I record all the talks, and that's available everywhere. So the talks are recorded and then distributed.
How do you record the talks? Just technically, how do you do it? And do you get a lot of background noise, or do you do lapel mics, or what's the?
I use a Yeti mic, it's a Yeti Blue. It's the moment.
I used to have that, but I found that just awful. Maybe I wasn't using it right, but it just picks up everything. That's the good and the bad of it.
I'm not sure. It's not amazing quality, but the whole thing about the meetup is that it's fairly homely, fairly lowbrow. Not lowbrow. Lowbrow is the wrong word, but it's a homely patchwork put together with love. And really that's the key message behind it. That you're trying to provide value, but you're doing it for all the right reasons. And so it might be that it's an 8 out of 10 in terms of conference quality, in terms of organization. But you know what? It's been put together in such a way that it's there for you. And, so long as people come in and sort of feel like it's there for them and they're being looked after in the right way. And I think a lot of people are quite forgiving of that kind of thing. I'd be quite interested in people's feedback anyway.
Cool.
On whether it's completely unlistenable.
Well, look, cheers, Joe. That's been a pleasure to talk, and all the best and good luck with the Marketing Meetup.
Sweet. Likewise. Sounds like you're doing great stuff.
Do you want to sell more tickets to your amazing events? EventFrame event ticketing has been built to minimize the amount of time it takes to buy a ticket. Result? You sell more tickets. Check out eventframe.com.